Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anara Tsabashalieva, along with co-host Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Sherey. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to pose any questions for our guest. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Dr. Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким поклоном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you. Today's guest will be introduced by Professor Victor Fett.
Thank you, Anara. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome back Dr. Pavel Gol'din from Huntington Institute of Zoology in Kiev, Ukraine, speaking from Kiev to us on impact of war on marine and coastal environment of the Black Sea and the Crimea. Few words about our speaker. Pavel Gol'din is a Ukrainian zoologist, researcher of modern and extinct marine mammals, such as dolphins, whales, seals. He was born in Crimea, but in 2014, due to Russian invasion, he had to move. Pavel discovered several genera of fossil whales in Europe and found many new facts on evolution and ecology of Black Sea dolphins. He spoke with us more than a year ago, and we are very pleased that he decided to be with us again. Please, Pavel, microphone is yours.
Hi, Victor. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a really great pleasure and great honor to be here today. And I will start with a small presentation I will give about the situation, the current environmental situation at the Black Sea and the impact of Russia's aggressive war on the Black Sea environment. I will share my screen, and in a few seconds you will be able to see my presentations, and then I will give this talk and I would be able to discuss it. Can you hear me well and see my screen?
Yes to both
Yes.
questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, is there any impact of Russia's war on marine and coastal environment of the Black Sea? It's a good question. Maybe it can sound as trivial, but actually, the war at sea is a quite rare thing in this world now, and during this Russia's war, the most of our activities were concentrated on land. However, the campaign, which is quite a rare example of the modern war at sea, with a lot of modern weapons in it, and especially it is especially important that this all is about the Black Sea, which is quite a small water body. It's not an ocean like the Atlantic or Pacific. It's more or less a small inland sea east to the Mediterranean. And what we can say about it? So the Black Sea is around 400,000 square kilometers in its area, and it is located in between Ukraine and the north, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, or Turkey, how it is named now, Georgia at the east, and Russia at the northeast, so named the Russian Federation. And there is even a smaller gulf, which is called the Sea of Azov, to the northeast of the proper Black Sea, So here is the Black Sea, here is the Sea of Azov, and here is the narrow passage between them, which is called the Kerch Strait. And as you can see, between these two water bodies, the Black Sea and the Azov Sea, there is a peninsula, which is the Crimea, my homeland. And here there is Istanbul and the Bosphorus Strait, and here you can, through this passage, you can go to the Mediterranean. So, as you may know, first Russia invaded Crimea and occupied it 10 years ago in 2014. Here they were 10 years ago. And then after 8 years of several military campaigns and truces, they started again their military aggression 2 years ago, and in 2022 they went from Crimea to the north and from here to the west, and now they took all the area around the Azov Sea. They also wanted to go further to the west, but they faced Ukrainian resistance, and now the front line is somewhere here along the Dnipro River and just north to the Azov Sea. And this modern war, it brought several risks and threats, and some of these threats, they became actual rather than potential, and now we already are seeing some of their consequences. So the main sources of risks, these are or will be vessel movements and vessel sonars, aircraft and other vehicles, blasts and missile launches. This also includes mining and the activity of sea mines and water and underwater ammunition, ruining of landscapes and seascapes, ruining of infrastructure facilities, shipwrecks, and other technogenic disasters. When we are talking about the vessels which are accompanied by aircraft and their sonars, we go back to 2 years, the situation 2 years ago, 2022. So the most intensive military activities, mostly Russian military activities, they occurred in the Black Sea 2 years ago. And most of the campaign at sea, it came back to the situation of 2022. This is because during this war, the Ukrainian underwater drone industry quickly arose and developed, and numerous underwater drones were produced and launched by Ukraine. So now most of the Russian Navy is concentrated in the northeastern Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, and the military activity is quite low. At least it is much lower than it was 2 years ago. But if we go to the situation of 2 years ago, we saw a lot, tens, several dozens of the military ships in the northwestern Black Sea, and these were not only traditional ships, but also around 10 submarines, which were quite active, and all of them launched missile attacks on the Ukrainian land area, and also these the vessels were based for aircraft, helicopters, and planes, which were also attacking the Ukrainian territories. So all these, I would say, are mountains of iron. These were the source of numerous kinds of noise and numerous kinds of pollution, which I would specify a bit later. Especially dangerous for people of Ukraine, but also for marine life. These were missile launches from the ship platforms. Mostly these missiles were called Calibre, and during the several first weeks of the war in 2022, I guess at least several hundreds of these missiles were launched. And here you can see a so-named unsuccessful start of the missile. So if they handle the missile, it can go on its route, but also it can be unsuccessful. And in this case, the missiles just fall down to the sea with all this noise and all this toxic fuel, because the Russian missiles, they are especially known for these for their highly toxic fuel compounds. Some of them are so toxic that to fill the missile with the fuel, people wear special closed suits, and even having these closed suits, they become quickly intoxicated within several minutes. And you can only imagine what happens when such a missile falls down to the marine environment, and all these toxic fuels is taken by currents, and it can drift over hundreds of miles. Another source of risk and threat, which is quite considerable for the Black Sea, and this situation becomes only worse, which is different from the situation with the ships themselves, for example, is the sea mines. Because Russia was mining the northern and northwestern Black Sea and the even the southwestern Black Sea from the first day of their full-scale invasion, and actually we don't know how many sea mines they used, but probably this number might exceed as 1,000 or maybe several thousands of them. Most of the mines known, these are floating mines, so they also can drift over hundreds miles. And here you can see the result of the mine blast. So that's what is left after the mine when it blasts, and nobody effectively counts how many mines have been blasted during these 2 years, but probably there were at least several tens, so maybe more than 100 incidents, and which affected not only Ukraine but also Bulgaria, Turkey, and other Black Sea countries. So some of these mines were spotted in the Istanbul area, which is around 500 kilometers from Ukraine or so. As you can see, this is the marine situation as is it can be seen from the web platform Global Fishing Watch. So here you can see the blue squares. These are ship sonars. The pink squares, these are vessels detected by the AIS data loggers, and the yellow squares, these are lights which can be seen at night. So if you look at the situation as it was for the April 2022, you can see that most of these sonars and lights, they were different from the pink squares. This means that these were not civil vessels, because civil vessels are usually give data about their presence, so they are pink. But as you can see, most of the squares, they are not pink, they are just blue. And this means that these were mostly naval ships. And here you can see more or less easily extrapolate that these were the Russian naval ships, including submarines, and they were mostly concentrated around the Crimean Peninsula west to it, here and here, but also in the open sea here, and even near the northwestern shoreline controlled by Ukraine, so here and here. So Russian naval ships could be spotted even just next to the city of Odessa. And this was the very gloomy reality at the time. Here you can see the extrapolation of done by the Eocene researchers. So here these were the hotspots of a presence of Russian naval ships, and this is the photographs taken from a web archive of a Russian officer by Ukrainian Eocene researchers as well. And here you can see the plan as mapped on the map of the Black Sea, and this pretty much confirms this real situation we could see from the satellite data on Russian sonars. Also, the Eocene researchers are partly reconstructed the likely suggested patterns of Russia's mining activity during the spring of 2022. And here you can see that it pretty much matches the situation with the sonars. So Russian naval ships, including submarines, went next to the northwestern part of the Black Sea, next to Odessa, and set hundreds of floating mines. As for the going a bit apart from the marine situation, I would briefly touch the coastal situation. So the greatest environmental problem caused by the Russia's war is the coastal environment. These were blasts and fires, because most of these northwestern Black Sea coastline, it is covered by wetlands. There are a lot of small gulfs, bays, peninsulas, islands, and all of them are important wetlands of the worldwide significance. All of them are designated as important bird areas, and so on, so on. And here you can see a picture of one of them, the Kinborn Peninsula, and the situation, how it looked from the NASA, from the NASA FIRES map, and also as it could be seen from the satellite images. So actually, most of the Kinborn Peninsula during the spring 2022 was literally burned down with these activities. And going to the marine environment, the greatest environmental problem for the marine area per se is the marine pollution. And the pollution, it can be chemical, and this includes oil pollution, organic pollution, and the pollution by toxic fuels, by heavy metals, by ammunition, the products of burning fuel, and so on, so on. Biological pollution includes bioinvasions and pathogens, and the sources of bioinvasions are really diverse, because as you know, Russia, for example, Russian oil export is under sanctions now, and most of this export it goes to such countries as India, Southeast Asia, China, and so on. And this means that they invite and receive tank vessels from these regions. So we have potentially have a lot of ballast waters coming from the tropical seas, from the seas near equator, and potentially a lot of tropical invasive organisms can come to the Black Sea. Another problem is the pathogens, and some of the pathogens could be free because of ruining of infrastructure. For example, the canalization tubes and the whole canalization systems of cities like Mariupol, for example, and many pathogens could be released to the marine environment from these sewage waters and something like this. A potential threat is also the radioactive marine pollution. As for now, fortunately, this is only a potential kind of risk rather than threat, but still it should be referred to, and we always should take care about this potential possibility. And another very specific source of pollution is the noise pollution. And the noise, it can be a surface noise and it can be an underwater noise. It can be an impulse noise, a kind of a sudden source of noise like a blast, or it can be an ambient noise from constantly operating engines, for example. It can be high frequency and low frequency. It can be loud or more or less quiet. And depending on its characteristics, it can have multiple effects. And this is especially dangerous for the animals I was invited to here to talk about, the marine mammals, especially toothed cetaceans such as dolphins and porpoises. And for sure, an important part of marine pollution is the pollution by mines. So what's about marine mammals? Historically, there were 4 species of marine mammals inhabiting the Black Sea, and 2 of them are dolphins, the bottlenose dolphin and the common dolphin. One is the porpoise, the harbor porpoise, and there was also the monk seal, the Mediterranean monk seal, which absolutely came to extinction to the Black Sea, and now it can be seen only in the Mediterranean. Here you can see the Ukrainian infographics created by Ukrainian researchers just prior to the invasion about specific threats for each of these species. I would just say that even during the peacetime, there were multiple threats for each of them. So all these 3 species which inhabit the Black Sea, and they are represented by local subspecies or isolated populations, and all of them were considered as at least vulnerable or even threatened. So they were not quite safe even before this full-scale invasion, and the Russia's war, it just added another threat to numerous threats which pre-existed before it. During the 2022, we and other researchers were witnesses of die-off of the Black Sea cetaceans. I would not say it was a top record for the die-off I could see during my research career. It was not the largest mortality event, but it was still considerably high, and it was at least twice high as the average annual mortality. Also, it was a bit different from previous event, for example, because there was the first peak of mortality during the early spring, like the March of 22, and many cases within it, this was the common dolphin, which is a more or less rare die-off event for the Black Sea. In total, during 2022, there were more than 900 reported cases, more than 100 of them in Ukraine, and the largest number actually was in Bulgaria and Turkey. Mostly, as I said, these were common dolphins and harbor porpoises, and 35 of them were live strandings. The strandings I dealt with, these were mostly starved animal, and during the post-mortem necropsies, we saw diverse symptoms of their pathological states or situations, and now this all is still under lab examination, and I wonder about the final diagnosis, so which would probably come quite soon from several labs situated in the Western Europe, namely in Italy and Germany. It's important that a similar case of die-off was also spotted in the East Mediterranean as at the coast of Cyprus, and this was in 2023, and this also coincided with the Russian naval activities, a kind of their war games, which was somewhere between Syria, Cyprus, and Turkey, and there are several big whales were found stranded, and also the primary hypothesis was about the association between these two events, and now, as far as I am aware, the cases are under lab examination. But that's not the only war situation which can be threatening for cetacean. For example, in the Jaralgach Bay in the northwestern Black Sea, the area which was occupied by Russians in 2022, they built a bridge across the narrow passage here, just in the middle of the spit, which is joining the Jaralgach Island to the mainland. And because of this construction, the Jaralgach Bay for some time became completely isolated from the adjoining sea. There was only one entrance to the east of it here. And this was quite bad for the water circulation in this important bird area. But I would say here I can report a happy end, because this autumn, the fall 2023, there was a great storm, like the greatest during the last 100 years, and now all these constructions are totally washed out, and there are even 3 passages between the Jaralgach Bay and the sea, open sea, and now this ecosystem seems quite healthy, even better than it was before all the Russian constructions. However, there are not so lucky areas, and one of them is the Kerch Strait, the passage which joins the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. The Russians first, they built the bridge across it, a large bridge which was very, the construction itself was very noisy. It was ruining for the ecosystem. It was ruining for the bottom sediments. It washed away a lot of toxic sediments from the seafloor. And it was really bad for a small population of harbor porpoises, which inhabited the Sea of Azov in summer during the breeding season, and each year they were migrating to the Black Sea for winter, for feeding, and then each spring they were coming back to the Sea of Azov. So building a bridge, it was had a really bad effect on their migrations. But during the last 2 years, Russians did something more. They built new constructions, built of ships, like here you can see, to prevent Ukrainian drones to come to the Sea of Azov. So now all the passage seems to be closed, and it definitely prevents the migration of porpoises, and I cannot even predict the consequences of this policy. Here you can see the latest satellite image from the area, and you see three rows of ships making a construction just next to the bridge. And it's very hard to say what happens to porpoises which would like to come out from this strait, for example, or come in. And another well-known situation is the clear case of ecocide, and this is the situation when Russians blew up the Kakhovska Dam at the lower Dnipro in June 2023. After this, the Kakhovka Reservoir, which was one of the greatest water reservoirs in the whole Europe, it just came to zero during several weeks. And here you can see how it looks from a satellite coverage as for now. So instead of a large lake, which was called the Kakhovka Sea, we can see only the river valley and several small water bodies. One of them is near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And this disaster, it's among its consequences, there was a die-off of various animals, both land animals and estuarine animals, freshwater populations, and also for a lot of marine life. There was the displacement of animals like this turtle, the pollution of the northwestern Black Sea with the marine litter, and also a huge algal bloom in the northwestern Black Sea. Also, it affected marine mammals, and there was several harbor porpoises found dead just several days after this disaster, and there was a necropsy for 2 of them, and we found the remnants of freshwater fish in its stomach, which was actually quite unusual and maybe unique for this population. Probably this was the first record of the freshwater, and that's quite probable that this unusual feeding could contribute to the cause of death of these animals. So the conclusion is that the threats for the marine and coastal life evolve and change, and the short-term consequences arise, and research ongoing, and we mostly use remote data for this research. And the last conclusion I would like to talk about that both combat activities by Russia and the so-named peace and actually hybrid activities like bridge constructions and so on, these are equally threatening for the environment, because Russia itself is a kind of anti-environment state which does not care about environment at all, and this is particularly threatening for the marine environment because the whole Black Sea ecosystem is quite vulnerable and fragile. That's all that I would like to talk about today, and I cannot say would be happy, but I think this would be important if we talk more about it, and I will answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Gol'din. This was remarkable and moving and tragic presentation. Dr. Deutsch, please. Len Deutsch is our former graduate dean of Marshall University.
Hi. I would imagine that before the war, you and some graduate students did a lot of on-site research, collecting samples, maybe using gauges to measure changes in water quality and such. But then the war came along and it's very dangerous. How do you monitor what's going on in the Black Sea now?
Well, we mostly apply several approaches. What I was saying about, we extensively use remote monitoring with satellite images, and these partly allow us to reconstruct environmental situations. Second, we extensively use the coastal observations and sampling water from the coast, for example, as well as we sample stranded animals from which are washed ashore dead on the coastline. And the third approach that we not saying widened, but we extensively use international collaborations. So we ask data from our colleagues from the neighboring countries, including Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Georgia, and also our students go there, and they are doing cooperative projects based on in those countries. So because the Black Sea is quite small, and actually if we are studying dolphins, for example, it does not matter much if we take samples from Ukraine or from Bulgaria. It's a matter of 200 kilometers. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Deutsch. Katerina, please.
Thank you for the incredible visuals, the maps, the kind of, I'm very grateful. You have the soul of a teacher, how you immediately oriented us to where these things are happening, and that made your presentation so easy to follow. Thank you. I read you were quoted in an article that was published by the BBC in January of, I think, 2023 about the connection between mass strandings and acoustics, sonar, maybe. Does this sound right? You were quoted as talking about that acoustic trauma is likely a contributor to the death of these sea mammals. Could you talk a little bit more about acoustic trauma and the way that dolphins use sonar to navigate?
I would say that acoustics is cannot be a single explanation or even single hypothesis for such events, because the acoustic trauma, well, there is an acoustic trauma in the narrow sense, and there is that a trauma caused by noise, which is called the blast injury. So that the trauma in a broader sense, and this is about the echolocation apparatus of the two cetaceans. This means that they use their ears for getting information from the echolocatory system. So it can be said that they see the seascape by their ears rather than eyes. And so they use their hearing for example, locating their prey or for navigating. And that is why if the ear is damaged, this means that this animal cannot feed very well, and it can die from starvation. However, I would not like to say that, and I want to underline it. A mine or blast injury, or moreover, the acoustic trauma itself cannot be regarded as a single possible explanation for cetacean health because of the naval activities. Equally threatening is, for example, the chemical pollution. And that is why we, in our research, we try to keep in mind all the possible scenarios and all the possible causes. These include the natural causes and unnatural causes. That is why when we find a dead animal, we try to study all the possible hypotheses for its death. And we and our colleagues check it for the presence of viruses, for example, because it could die from a disease. But also we are trying to check all the possible sources of trauma for each dead animal. So we are not prejudged about any single cause.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very helpful explanation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gol'din. More questions, please, from our viewers or panelists. Please open your screen.
I have a
Anara,
question.
please.
Yes. Thank you very much for great presentation. I wish we have more actually information and talk more about this. And the question is, how does the war affect the Black Sea as a whole? And the second one, do you cooperate with certain non-profit organizations, some labs across the world? Because I know some non-profit organizations, they're equipped with precise assessment of damage. And they actually come to the different sites across the world, and they have they know how to measure chemical and biological damage. So do you have any connection with this specialized non-profit groups, I know some scientific organizations who can come and assess what happened, or at least to collect samples?
Well, so the first of your questions, what is the impact on the whole Black Sea? I think we will be able to measure this impact only after the war ends, because as I said, the war is ongoing, and every day we get more news, more details, and more factors which are influencing the situation. And there are multiple factors and which cause multiple effects. So it's very hard to say how it already affected the whole Black Sea, because the situation is very dynamic. The second question, yes, we are seeking cooperation as much as possible, and we will be extremely happy for any kind of cooperation. So if someone is hearing us now, you are very welcome to contact me, and I will be extremely happy to enhance the cooperation. And among the organizations we are already cooperating with is, for example, the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine in the United States. And we had an extremely productive meeting this May on the between the 1st and the 3rd of May. There was a 3-day meeting specially dedicated to the impact of Russia's war on the Ukrainian environment, both land and sea. And now we are expecting development of this cooperation, among others.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gol'din. I have a question while others may be thinking of more. I know that this spring you received the prestigious award prize in Ukraine from Kiev School of Economics. Could you please talk about this program and awards a little bit and about cooperation with United States on this matter, please?
Thank you very much for mentioning this. It was a really great honor for me, and this was very helpful because that's what I live on now, and this helps a lot. This prize was given for not only for me, but in total, the target for this year is to give 150 prizes to Ukrainian researchers and cultural actors, and also by societal activists who are doing something important for the Ukrainian society, science, and culture. And they have been started giving these prizes 2 years ago, from 2022. This was because of the necessity to support Ukrainian activists during this war, because to be very frank, we all are in a great need. And this year, the focus of this prize, of giving these prizes, is about a special focus is about the STEM sciences, science, technology, engineering, and math. They would like to give 60% of these prizes to STEM researchers in Ukraine. And what is important, that the Kiev School of Economics, it has close ties with several universities in the United States. First of all, with the University of Pittsburgh, but also with several other American universities. And this is the private university which actively hires American professors to teach in Ukraine, and so it has deep roots in America, and it raises a lot of funds in the United States for helping Ukraine. So, and I would say that this is a highly effective Ukrainian institution, which helps a lot in doing something good for the Ukrainian academic environment.
Thank you. More questions, please. Leslie, please open your video.
Hello. What I wanted to talk about was the possible connection between pathogens, which you mentioned possibly being spread by the Russians due to their trade with India and China, and stranding events of marine mammals, because I know that in the 1980s off the coast of New England, there was a stranding event of seals that seems to have largely been caused by an influenza outbreak among the seals. So that's another potential contributing factor to stranding events. Just want to know if you'd looked into that at all.
I think it's a really good hypothesis, and as far as I know, several labs where my colleagues work are doing multiple analysis of pathogens of different origin. And I would not say if they do have any definite conclusions by now, but in general, it's always good to try to screen the material on all the possible pathogens which could cause the death, because nothing can be ruled out, and especially it's about emerging diseases. Because influenza, you mentioned, for example, it's as a whole. It infected came to mammals from birds, and yes, the birds are main reservoir for influenza, and different groups of mammals get this virus century by century in different varieties, in different forms, and that is why a new event can come any time and any moment, and that's definitely a good idea to check all the possible pathogens you can imagine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie, for a great question. If we have more questions, please. Meanwhile, I wanted to ask you specifically about Crimea. You're from Crimea. You fled 10 years ago. What do you know about researchers who stayed? Is it possible to estimate what are they doing? Are they under pressure? Are they living?
I think that each of them has their individual situation, and I think that's better to talk about it after the war ends.
Yes, thank you. I understand. Katerina?
So another non-science question: how are things in Kiev right now and today? How are people coping? What's the mood? I mean, I can't imagine the stress you all have been living under for so long. It has to be bizarre and surreal as well as terrifying. Can you speak a little bit about what does life look like in Kiev right now?
Well, it depends, but I would like you to be sure that we will stand.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Pavel. And this was fascinating to hear you again. And thank you for being a good friend of our program. We will be sure to disseminate the recording, and please do the same. We will conclude here with a few more words from Dr. Katerina Shrey to our Ukrainian viewers. And thank you again, Professor Pavel Gol'din, for being with us on 124th weekly meeting of MUkraine discussion group at Marshall University.
Thank you very much.
Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах і в серцях. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!